In this first video, we're going to look at just some simple basic alpha usage, how to use alphas, excuse me, where to find them, how to apply them. And it's quite simple. So let's go ahead and bring out a piece of geometry. I'm going to go ahead and click on the big square here and bring out a sphere 3D, drop it onto the canvas, put it into edit, change the material, make it a polymesh 3D, and then I'm going to come into the geometry tab and divide this a few times. We'll get it up to 500,000 polygons should work. We'll divide it one more time. That'll get us up to over 2 million polygons. The key with alphas, excuse me, is that you really need a lot of polygons for alphas to really work. All right. If we try to apply alphas at a low resolution, it's not going to look good at all. So let's go ahead and take a look at that. I'm going to go open up my divider here. I will drag over my alpha palette as well as my brush palette. We'll just drag this over here, make it easier to see. And I'm going to go ahead and just, with the standard brush selected, we'll just go ahead and look at some of the alphas that come with this, with ZBrush right here. And you can see when I click on the alpha palette, the big square, we've got several alphas that we can choose from. So let's go ahead and just look at this guy right here, alpha 34. So I'm going to go ahead and make my draw size a little bit bigger. And another menu we should probably bring over to look at is our stroke menu, because stroke menu matters when it comes to alphas. So let's move this over. And with the dot menu selected, or with the dot stroke selected, with this alpha, with this particular brush, if we go ahead and drag that out here, all right, you're going to see what happens. We get this sort of thing. Now, what's happening is a couple of things. Lazy mouse gets turned on a lot of times when we use certain alphas. To find lazy mouse, that is over in it's in the stroke palette. Right here you'll see lazy mouse. And you can go ahead and turn that off. And you can turn it off and on, as you like. But for the most part, you should probably turn it off. Now you'll notice that the alphas here are not looking very good, the alpha I applied, because the model is very faceted, very low res. Okay, so let me undo that and let me go ahead and bring my subdivisions back up to their highest subdivision level, and I'll go ahead and apply that alpha again. And you can see what happens here now. All right, with that particular stroke, that's what we get. All right, let me go ahead and change the stroke to drag rectangle, and now when we drag it out, this is what we get right here. Okay, and you'll notice as we scroll, if I scroll in here, that our model is still a little bit faceted. You can still see some faceting, some polygons on that particular piece of geometry right there. All right, so that would tell me that I would probably need to divide my model one more time. All right, even though it's got 2 million polygons, when I drag that alpha out there, it is still a little bit faceted. So this is something you want to keep an eye on. Another thing that you can adjust here is, and let me close this up for a sec, is our focal shift right here. If you notice on the cursor, there is an inner ring and an outer ring. If we and between those two rings is a bit of a fall off, okay, a bit of a fade. If we take that focal shift all the way down to -100, and now we draw that alpha out, it's going to be much sharper all the way around. Okay, so let's undo that. So be aware of your focal shift when it comes to alphas. All right, let's go ahead and open this up again. And I'll make my draw size a little bit smaller. Let's go in here and take another look at a different alpha. Let's try something like alpha 9 right there. Again, with the drag rectangle, that'll just simply drag out as a circle. And our intensity right here will dictate how strong that alpha will look. So you can see as I raise that up from 32 to 67, it becomes much stronger, and it pulls out a little bit higher as well. So let's undo that. I'll lower this down again so you can see. We'll click and drag, and you can see with a lower intensity, it's much softer, much weaker. Okay, so let's undo that. We can also use something like the where is it? The drag dots. for our alphas right here. So let me up my intensity a bit here, and you can see with the drag dots, it's a totally different thing. I can move that around and place it where I want it. Okay, and I can just click, 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 and the size of this alpha is determined by the size of my brush. So if I make my draw size smaller, I can come in here and click these in here. Okay, you can also hold Alt, and it will be negative. Okay, and we can try something like using our lazy mouse with this particular stroke right here. So if I turn lazy mouse on and I click and drag, okay, let's try that with the dots right here. So you can see as I click and drag that, and I'll up the intensity a bit, you can see what happens right there. They all just sort of fall in line. Now if we come over to our lazy mouse settings and take our lazy step down some, and then do that again, all right, you can see that they're going to be even closer together. So let's take the lazy step up to just past 1, and we'll do that again. And now you can see that you can lay them down quite nicely like that. All right, and again, that's using the dots with lazy mouse with this particular alpha right here. Okay. You can also use the spray stroke. Now the spray stroke works probably better if we use an alpha something like this perhaps, or this right here. Okay, and again, you're going to watch your intensity. I'll make my draw size a little bit bigger. All right, and with the spray stroke, with this kind of stuff right here, what we're going to get is this kind of stuff. Okay, now again, we can work with lazy mouse on, or I can hit L and turn that off. All right, let's roll this around a bit here and move it over. All right, so without lazy mouse, it'll actually spray. Okay, so a good way to quickly cover an area, if you wanted to give it a textural quality, we can lower that down and it'll be a lot softer. All right, again, another great way to just sort of fill an area up. Now, a lot of times when I'm using alphas, what I'll do as well as is use the layers palette over here. So let me go ahead and just get rid of some of this alphas. Okay, here we go. And in the layers palette, I can go ahead and create a new layer, and then come in here with this particular alpha and spray that on there. Okay, and then maybe create another layer and come in here with a different alpha, say something like this one right here. Okay, and we'll go ahead and just spray that on as well. All right, so you can get a combination of textures here, but what the layers palette will help allow you to do is to sort of fine-tune that. So now I can come in here and I can lower the intensity on each one of those layers and sort of find the sweet spot, so I don't have to be as concerned with the strength of it as I'm laying it down, because I can come in here later and adjust these to find sort of the sweet spot. So I work a lot with layers whenever I work with alphas. It's important to remember that if you work with layers, you should bake all of your layers down, all right, to make it all really a part of the geometry here. So if I bake it down, my layers disappear, and my geometry, my layers have been applied to my geometry. I can smooth that stuff out if I want. Now it's all part of the geometry. All right. So that's the basics of applying alphas. We have different strokes that we can use. We have different alphas inside here. If we go into our light box, if I hit comma and go into alpha right here, you can add your own alphas in here. There are some alphas that will come with ZBrush inside of your light box right here. Okay, so a lot of alphas in here. And let's see. If you want to create, so in the videos to come, we're going to talk about creating your own alphas, and you can where you can store them. You can store them in your applications folder, ZBrush 4R8 folder, and you'll be able to access them right here through Lightbox. So we'll be talking a little bit more about that in upcoming videos. All right, so basic alpha application requires a lot of polygons, a dense model, so that your alphas will look good. You need to decide on a stroke. More often than not, though, drag rectangle is the stroke of choice when it comes to laying down alphas. All right, so let's this up. All right, something like that. And again, remember, you can hold Alt and it will dig in. All right. Alt is always the sort of negative or the opposite of whatever a particular brush will do. All right. For the most part, again, we use the standard brush when we're creating or using alphas. Okay. So if you have any questions about that, it's pretty straightforward stuff when it comes to alphas. If you have any questions about that, let me know. In the next couple of videos, we're going to look at how we can actually create our own alphas.